So let's move to our third and final story this week, and we'll move to foodworldorder.com with a story from Washington's blog, EPA to reduce fluoride levels in water due to unwanted health effects. On January 7th, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, HHS and EPA, announced a reduction in allowable fluoride levels in drinking water, quoting from the press release from HHS and EPA. HHS proposed recommendation of 0.7 milligrams of fluoride per liter of water replaces the current recommended range of 0.7 to 1.2 milligrams. This updated recommendation is based on recent EPA and HHS scientific assessments to balance the benefits of preventing tooth decay while limiting any unwanted health effects. As the Associated Press notes, a scientific report 5 years ago said that people who consume a lifetime of too much fluoride, an amount over the EPA's limit of 4 milligrams, can lead to crippling bone abnormalities and brittleness. That and other research issued Friday, January 7th, by the EPA about health effects of fluoride are sure to re-energize groups that still oppose adding it to water supplies. So, James, once again, does it seem as though those crazy conspiracy theorists were right all along, yet again?
Somehow it seems that way, doesn't it? Wow, surprise, surprise. But of course the government is talking about like dental fluorosis and other, I mean, of course that is a problem, but it's not
spots
the main concern. Right, exactly. I mean, it's not a big concern when we're talking about the big scheme of things, but obviously it is at least some indication that that the anti-fluoride activists are having a massive effect. And thankfully I'm not in a country that does this. In Japan we don't have fluoridated water, but if I was in America and the EPA was doing this, I would wonder if there's the possibility for legal action against them, because obviously if they're putting the maximum allowable level at a level that they then announce later on, oh, by the way, that was unsafe, so we're going to lower it. I mean, there must be some legal recourse for that, because this is not a laughing matter. I mean, there's a lot of very serious consequences from this, and anyone who's looked into the actual effects of what we call sodium fluoride in the water, but of course isn't sodium fluoride, it's fluorosilicic acid, which is a completely different beast with all sorts of different additives, little goodies inside there. So when you start looking at this and unraveling it, it's actually a pretty horrific situation. So this is a good sign, at least it's a step in the right direction, but I think it's only the beginning of the battle, really, and I think this only, the people who are battling against this need to step up their efforts rather than relax.
That is an interesting note, and that makes me think that, there have been no sort of fantastic film, there's no Aaron Brockovich or Silkwood kind of films kind of exposing this and getting it out to folks on a broad level. But James, you did a full episode on fluoride, did you not?
I did indeed, and I talked to people like Paul Conant of the Fluoride Action Network at fluoridealert.org, which is an excellent resource, and I would really exhort people to go there because they've got a ton of resources on the actual effects of the fluoride in the water.
And we'll include links to that show in the show notes for this episode. So, James, as we draw it to a close, and those are our three main stories, we also want to mention, of course, what are kind of the big elephants in the room, that with our little bit of time off, there have been the stories about the mass animal die-offs, the story about John Wheeler ending up in a landfill in Delaware, and now we, of course, have the story of Gabrielle Giffords and another lone nut shooting event, and we also have, White House workers dying in car fires in Arlington. A lot of bizarre and suspicious activity going on.
By a watchdog group has found the cancer-causing chemical Chromium 6 in tap water samples across the country. Samples from 31 U.S. cities tested positive. Chromium 6 is the same chemical that Aaron Brockovich fought to expose in the town of Hinckley, California, more than a decade ago. And Sanjay, I know that you've actually been following this story quite a bit. So what happens when we do ingest this Chromium 6?
Yeah, it's interesting. Let me just give you a little bit of background quickly. There's about 80,000 chemicals, Randy, that we're surrounded with at any given time. Only 200 of them have been tested, and only 5 have been banned. This is one of those 5 that have been banned, Chromium 6, yet it's still showing up in many places, as you just mentioned. One of the concerns is it's listed as a potential carcinogen, and the concern specifically is about stomach cancer, which came up in that movie about Aaron Brockovich as well. So it's a potential cancer-causing agent that was banned, yet still as you just said, shows up in people's drinking water.
Well, hearing that, I'm no expert, but it seems pretty obvious to me that this should not be in our drinking water. So what is the EPA doing about this, if anything?
Well, you know, I mean, the EPA has a standard for total chromium in the water. And the issue is that this environmental working group, their standard is more conservative. They say it's based on newer science. So, and we looked into this today, the EPA is saying they're reviewing that new science as part of a risk assessment that it's conducting that will complete that assessment in 2011. So the standard may change at some point, but keep in mind, again, some of these things are naturally occurring substances and then break down into some of these potentially cancer-causing agents. So it can be tricky to measure and subsequently to regulate as well, Randy.
All right.
My land was on top of a formation called the Marcellus Shale, and that was the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. I could lease my land to this company. Could it be that easy? Everywhere I went, it was the same story. Water trouble.
They never had a problem with the water. After they drilled, the water was bad.
Oh, man. Health problems.
I'm never healthy.
Hazardous explosive conditions inside the house.
Whoa! And all those dots you're looking at here are oil and gas wells. This is happening everywhere. That's the biggest thing I want people to know.
I have samples that are from all over the country. I'm wondering if you're interested in drinking some of this.
Well, there is a water crisis right now in California. Some locals in small towns say their water is simply not safe to drink. And much of this contamination comes from harmful levels of nitrates, which pose a significant health threat, in particular to infants. Now the residents say they're tired of waiting. Anita Vogel, live in Los Angeles on this one. Hey, Anita.
Hi there, Megan. Yeah, they have been waiting a long time for the state to fix this problem. We're talking about California's Central Valley, which is often called the breadbasket to the world for its fruits and nuts. But now, ironically, some of the residents in the small towns there say they're afraid to drink their own water because testing shows it's not safe. It's a ritual Becky Quintana goes through every time she makes a pot of coffee, using bottled water instead of tapping into water from the sink. She's concerned about high levels of contaminants and nitrates found in the water supply in her small town of Seville, California.
This isn't supposed to be happening. I mean, we're one of the richest nations in the world, and we're living like third world country.
Home to 350 residents, Seville is supported by the agriculture and livestock industries, orange groves, and dairy farms. Activists say, as a result, the well water is polluted by nitrates from fertilizer and animal waste. And they say crusty old pipes are cracked and expose their water to soot and sand.
This is 2010. Enough is enough. We need to prioritize this and demand our basic rights. We're not asking for handouts. We're asking for a basic service.
At Seville's only school, water fountains have been disconnected and students drink sparklets. State public health officials acknowledge nitrates can cause serious health problems, but add those problems are not unique to Seville.
There are many hundreds, if not thousands, of communities across the state that have similar and sometimes more severe problems.
Elevated levels of nitrates are linked to kidney disease and cancer, and then it can also cause problems with oxygen in blood, especially among babies, as you mentioned. Now, last year, Tulare County did apply for a state grant to start fixing these problems in Seville, but the people there are still waiting. Megan.
Anita, thank you.
I'm sure puts up a lot of red flags for people. Joining us is Fox 9 medical expert Dr. Raquel Giorgio to talk about it. Good morning. Good morning. First, the U.S. has been adding fluoride to its public water supply for decades, and that's, of course, to prevent tooth decay. Well, now researchers from Japan are suggesting that we add lithium. So why is that?
Well, they're actually not suggesting it, but they're certainly looking into it. Lithium is a medication that in prescription doses treats mood disorders in people with bipolar disorder or manic depressive illness. And what these researchers found in Japan is that lithium is present in trace amounts in the normal water supply in some communities. And in those communities, they have a lower suicide rate. And so they're really investigating whether trace amounts of lithium can just change the mood in a community enough to really, in a positive way, without having the bad effects of lithium, to really affect the mood and decrease the suicide rate. Very interesting concept. You know, it's the same reason why we put iodine and salt, fluoride and water There's many different examples of when we put trace amounts of chemicals in the normal supply of food or water to help people's health.
Right, although this is the first where they're actually affecting people's moods and, you know, the brain. So that, I'm sure, puts up a lot of red flags for people.
That's your toothpaste. Orajel chewing toothpaste. Very good. That's right. Make Orajel your child's first toothpaste. It has great flavors and it's fluoride-free, so it's safe to swallow. Fluoride-free, so it's safe to swallow. Fluoride-free, so it's safe to swallow.
But Rob Damaris has been concerned for years about what's in the supply he gets from China. The residue you see here is what won't dissolve when he puts the fluoride powder in the water.
What is that?
We don't know.
You have no idea what's in there?
I don't know what it is. It's not soluble. It doesn't appear to be sodium fluoride, so we're not quite sure what it is.
Damaris says the residue clogs his machines and makes it difficult to get a consistent mix. The water in Amesbury is supposed to have fluoride in it. The Department of Public Health says more than 650,000 customers in 44 communities are getting the product in question. But despite those concerns, we want to be clear, both state and federal health officials tell Team 5 Investigates Chinese fluoride is safe.
Fluoride-free, so it's safe to swallow. Fluoride-free, so it's safe to swallow. Fluoride-free, so it's safe to swallow. Orajel, what moms want and kids love.
For the City Council of New York, which just passed a new benefits package for the horses that pull the carriages in Central Park. The four-legged employees will now get guaranteed 5 weeks vacation, new health benefits, and also mandatory regulated breaks.
Unfolds live here on Happening Now. A Texas man crashes his light plane into an IRS building in Austin, Texas.
You know, it's a cultural thing.